All right, so I'm on a job planting 9 plants. This is a landscape that we actually started 3 years ago. I designed the whole thing, I want to say 3 years ago, and we just planted the blooming stuff back then, just chipping away, right? And now 3-4 years later, we're finishing the job. But look, this particular bed is really bad because of these rocks. You can see solid rock. So I'm having to take a pickaxe and actually chip away at the stuff in here. And I feel like a lot of people would run into this and think, these plants are never going to live. How do you make this work? Yada, yada, yada. And just give up or, do it wrong and then everything would die. But look, I planted all these 3 years ago and they're thriving, doing really, really well. And let me show you how to fix this. Okay, so I've got my rock pickaxed out to a degree. And now you can see how big my hole is compared to the plant. Okay, so pretty big, and it sits way down in there, right? Do not plant this way. What we're gonna do, we're gonna take some backfilling, and we're gonna fill the bottom of this hole in just a second. Okay, so filled that up. Now I'm gonna dig out just a little bit and kind of line the hole. We'll throw that down in there. I want just a little bit more. Put a little bit more. All right, and now my root ball sits above the ground, okay? And now we're gonna bury it like this. And I'm just gonna use the old dirt to pack it in. Nothing wrong with that. And now let me pack this in and I'll show you what it looks like. Okay. All right, so here it is. And maybe you can tell, maybe not, but it is mounted up above the level surface. There's a couple reasons for that. When you have this hard clay, whenever you get a heavy rain, all that water is going to pool at the bottom. The clay kind of acts like a cup or a bowl, and what we're doing is we want to raise the root ball of the plant to where it doesn't sit in that bowl of water. Okay, so that's first and foremost. You're going to prevent root rot in the time that this plant is establishing, because your fresh plants are going to be really susceptible to that. So we're raising it above the water, but also when it's mounded up, a lot of that water is going to shed off. It's going to roll off. So you're going to reduce that pooling by mounding it too. Over time, this dirt that we added will settle and pack, and it'll actually end up level, but it gives it a good long period to get established without root rot and issues like that. We've been planting in clay soil. I can't think of a yard where we're not dealing with this clay soil and planting in the last decade. And we don't really lose plants, unless it's like a bug or a fungus or something. We don't lose it to just dying in the planting process. All right, so here we are doing this by one hand, trying to show you exactly how it looks, but the mixture in the soil is bagged products from your box store. It's going to be a potting mix, some sand, a little bit of compost, mushroom compost, black cow, and soil conditioner. So sand, soil conditioner, black cow, compost. And typically for larger jobs, you can go to a mulch supplier and get the similar mix in bulk, and it'll be a lot cheaper. So if you have a big project, you can actually till all that in and improve your soil as a whole, as opposed to doing it for just one plant individually. And as an added little step, if you want a little extra health for your plants, take some compost at the end of each year, so in the fall, and just put a little pile of compost around each plant, and you'll keep that plant thriving for years to come. All right, so just a couple quick notes on those specific plants. The boxwoods and the false cypress. That one's actually a lemon thread cypress. You don't need to trim them. You don't need to cut them for like 2 years. One of the good things about planting those is, you know, people want low maintenance, and those are pretty well low maintenance for the first few years. I think way back in, I don't know when, 7-8 years ago, I planted 8 or 9 of those for a customer, and I didn't start trimming them until, I want to say, year 6 of the boxwoods, because it takes them a while to kind of fill into their space, and then you just kind of make the decision, how big do you want them, and that's when you start trimming them. Those, I wouldn't let them get too big, just because the flower bed itself is pretty small, but that particular variety is really good about you know, not having to suffer through leaf blight and all that kind of thing that boxwoods are pretty susceptible to. I've had pretty good success with those. The lemon thread, I love it because it's year-round color, so that will have a little bit of yellow there even through the winter, right? It's one of the good things about those little conifers. And let's see, what else? In my position, I have to pick plants that I know for sure work in this area, and everything in that bed is something that I've planted a billion times, and I just kind of know I don't have to worry about it, really. There are a lot of plants out there that are pretty high maintenance. They want a lot of water. You need to fertilize them. All sorts of little knickknacks to make them look their absolute best. You know, they'll look good for X amount of months the first year, right? And then the season changes, or, you know, whatever. And eventually it'll have a higher water requirement that, you know, the customer might not water. Maybe they don't have irrigation. Maybe whatever it is wants fertilizer a certain time of year. Like there's certain little plants that, you know, you really got to pay attention to. Like I want to say it's salvia. I can't remember. It's not sage. I can't remember which one it is. Maybe salvia. But, you know, it looks great for a few months, and then eventually it's like, hey, you need to up your watering because now we're going into summer, and if you are not watering that crazy religiously, it's like petunias. You know, you have to water petunias like twice a day. The salvia, it's not twice a day, but it wants heavy water in those summer months, and 99% of people are just not going to do that to the degree that it needs. So in my position, I have to be able to determine, you know, I have to kind of check out the customer, and I'm thinking, is this person someone that's going to water 3 times a week? So 99% of customers are going to get some of the same plants because they're super low maintenance, super low water requirement. You can literally, most of the plants that I stick in the ground are going to be things that you could literally not trim for 5 years, not water for 5 years, and they will look okay. You know, they're not going to be their peak, because you want peak out of your landscape, you have to do maintenance items, whether it's trimming or fertilizing or whatever. But the plants I choose, I kind of account for the fact that most people are not going to be out in the garden 3 times a week to do those little maintenance items. So something to think about. All right, so here is the project we planted last year. 24 plants, and 24 out of 24 has lived very successfully. Now I want you to notice these hydrangeas, they're not full of blooms or flowers, right? They'll bloom in the summer. One of the biggest issues with hydrangeas is transfer shock, which is, this hill's kicking my butt, y'all. When you take it out of its pot, always it will kind of wilt and lose its foliage and its blooms, and then the next year, okay, which is this year, it will rebloom. So if you're planting hydrangeas and you're thinking, oh no, they just keep dying, they're probably not dying. It's transfer shock and it is constant with hydrangeas. But yeah, 100% success on this project from last year. One of the things that I always offer is free replacements for up to a year. So they have until October of this year to get replacements. And now check this out. One slight issue on these, got a little bug problem. That's what this is in the middle here. There's little bugs that will nest in the middle. So super simple fix, we'll spray some insecticide, but that's not related to your planting, right? All your arborvitaes are always going to be super finicky to bugs, trimming, weather change, fungus, you name it, right? And look, when it rains, it pours, right? Got the same thing coming on here. So either way, no worries, because if it does die, we'll just replace it. But yeah, we're gonna have to spray these though, because like I say, arborvitaes are so finicky. I wouldn't choose them personally. I would go for something a little more hardy, but this video is just to show you my method works.